I should slow down like Jesus. I'm sure he was in a hurry. It was today. He didn't say, eventually it will be, or today you're going to start journeying towards, or anything like that. He said, today you're going to be with me in paradise when he dies. Philippians 1:23, 2 Corinthians 5:8. I'm just giving you verses in case you're writing them down to be able to look at it, and encourage you to do so. But both of those are stories where Paul said he struggled, because he says, I know that I need to be alive and do the work of the Lord, but I want to die to be with Jesus. That if I live, it's there, but if I die, it's better. He really wants to be with his Lord, but he talks about going right there, right to him away, or right away to him. So the answer, Scripture, to that question is that, yeah, you'll go right away to meet Jesus. There's no waiting until the rapture. There's no going off somewhere else first. That you go and you're with Jesus immediately when you die. As far as the choice of the bodies, hey, you can put in a request, but I got no promises. Honestly, what we determine on earth, what is beautiful and stuff, heaven is totally different. And so you're going to be, trust me when I say, you'll be happy with the body you get. But I can understand why you might want to put in requests. I've thought of it myself. So let's move to the third section here, which is questions about what heaven is like. And again, there's so many stuff. This was really great to be able to study through, and I want to encourage you, because it's just a lot of stuff that you can look at to be able to study what heaven is really like. But again, I want to stay kind of focused on the questions that were really addressed. So the final two questions that I had about heaven and what it was like were about what it was like. One question was this. I guess it was the final question. Our family members will our family members even know us when we die and go to heaven, or we will be strangers to each other? I kind of addressed that point earlier in that first part when I said, you will have a personality. There will be some knowledge that you'll have. Scripture seems to indicate that you recognized people when Jesus and they said Elijah and different people, that there's some interaction of awareness of who people are. And so to answer your question, I think we carry our personalities. I think we carry our memories with us to heaven as well, with the one exception. I don't think we carry awareness of sin. I don't think we carry pain or regret or sorrow or guilt. Scripture is very clear about the fact that there's no more tears or sadness. There's no more hurt. Personality-wise, if your personality is one to be abrasive, then you might as well get it done here, because it won't go up there. Or else maybe we're just so gracious that we don't see it as abrasive anymore. I'm not sure which. But clearly, there are some elements of our life here, which is the brokenness of sin, that won't go with us. But as far as the awareness of who we are and those things, they do, Scripture seems to indicate that they do go on, and we are aware. The second question, here's the second one, was I want to take some more to discuss. It was this, and I think really is a powerful question for us all. If some people are going to have more jewels in their crowns in heaven, won't that make people jealous and unhappy if they don't have as many jewels as their friends, family members, etc.? How does that work? The Bible uses the imagery of crowns and jewels and all of that in Scripture. And yet Scripture uses it really more as an object of a metaphor. And if you look through those passages where it talks about, what it really speaks to is much more of quality of life or of character. So it's not like we're going to get up there and I'm going to have a crown with 8 jewels or something like that based on 8 great things I did or whatever. But rather, it's using that imagery of a crown, again, a human description of something that will be far better in heaven. But it's described, if you look at the context, for example, Philippians 4:1, Paul says to the believers, he says, "You are my joy and my crown." In other words, Paul's saying the work that I've done in here, when I look to see how I've shared the gospel with you and how you've grown up in your faith and how you've become to be a believer yourself, and I've seen through our own encouragement with each other, which all of us could say to the ones we have, that we become a crown to each other, that it's kind of our joy and our accomplishment, if you will, of God using us in a way that kind of carries with us. 1 Peter 5:4 says, "When the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away." It's a description of this glory, this righteousness, this holiness that will just envelop us when we're in heaven. That's part of that imagery of a crown. 2 Timothy 4:8. "Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, and not only me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing." Again, these are all imageries of that crown, of this crown of being the fruit of the Spirit, the character traits that are developing in us. As those develop in us, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, that they become our crown that we enjoy as we go into heaven. And so that's kind of the imagery of that. But really, the real question is, do our actions on earth impact our rewards in heaven? And this is something I think as a church we've really kind of sidestepped. I mean, we think of grace, of course, and we don't want to undermine the grace of Jesus Christ, and it was not by works. And so sometimes I look at the way we live and we think that we almost treat it like communism, where we're all going to have equal playing in heaven, regardless. And when it comes to salvation, and when it comes to the presence of the Lord and all of that, that's true. But heaven doesn't speak in a way that it's all one when we get in heaven. In fact, heaven speaks very strongly when we look through the passages that there are rewards, that there are levels in heaven, that there is various blessings, if you will, from God based on what we do here on earth. Matthew 16:27 says, "For the Son of Man is going to come in His Father's glory with His angels, and then He will reward each person according to what he has done." That's not talking about salvation, but that's talking about the life that we've lived and the way that we've lived it. And based on that life, how we are blessed, how we are rewarded by God, that there is an impact in our life. I sped up along because I wanted to jump to this. And you can follow along if you want. Matthew 25. Turn with it if you want to follow along. And there are other passages that, but for the sake of time, I can't go and look at them all. But definitely talk about how we give an account of our life before Jesus. I'm sure that there's going to be a sit down with Jesus meeting, and we're going to have a lot to share or a lot to hear that's going on in our life. But this particular passage is a parable Jesus gave about the talents. Many of us have heard it, but it's worth reading through, and I want to take the time to read through it because it's a passage Jesus was using to describe heaven. They were talking about, excuse me, he was talking through about what the kingdom of heaven would be like. And so when Jesus used a parable, of course it's a story, but it has a heavenly meaning. And so I want to encourage you to look in your own life, even as I'm reading. I'm just going to read through it. I'm not going to break it down. But as I read through this story, imagine that this is the imagery of the story that translated to us when we go back before Jesus and we have to account for our life and all the gifts and the blessings and the talents and the resources that God has given us, where we fit in this particular story. So let me read it. This is the parable of the talents. Matthew 25, starting at verse 14, says this. Again, he's talking about the kingdom of heaven. He says, "Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to one another talent, each one according to his ability. And then he went on his journey." So, some people are very gifted in some areas, or financially blessed, some are less. Every one of us has different abilities based on what God gives us. And so it was what God chose to give. Verse 16, "The man who had received the 5 talents went out once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them." Again, giving account, judgment, giving account for what you did. "The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things." Again, an implication that there's responsibility in heaven. We're all not just sitting around by a lake twiddling our thumbs saying, "Oh, you're going to go fishing today?" I mean, you might have those moments, but there are responsibilities in heaven. "Come and share in your master's happiness," he says. Verse 22. "The man with the 2 talents also came. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I've gained 2 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness.' Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. 'Master,' he said, 'I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you.